The phone rang at 2:47 in the morning. He stared at the screen, his heart stopping at a name he had deleted 100 times but somehow always restored. His finger hovered over the answer button, trembling. When he finally pressed it, her voice came through like a ghost returning from 18 years in the grave. "I would not call if there was any other way." Her words were ice and fire combined. "Our daughter is dying. And you are the only one who can save her." His throat closed. "What daughter? We never. I was pregnant when you threw me away. Twins. 17 years old now. And our daughter's kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant. The genetic markers are too specific. Only you can give her what she needs." The room tilted. The city lights beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows blurred into meaningless streaks. "Where?" His voice cracked on the single word. "Mercy General Hospital. Do not bring your lawyers. Do not bring your money. Just bring yourself and whatever humanity you have left." The line went dead. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are at. If you are new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. The penthouse had never felt so suffocating. Marcus Donovan stood frozen in his bedroom, surrounded by silk sheets and designer furniture and the accumulated trophies of a life spent building empires while his children grew up without him. The phone was still pressed against his ear, playing nothing but silence, but he could not seem to lower it. "I have children." The thought hit him like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, catching himself on the edge of his bed, his legs suddenly unable to support his weight. "I have children who do not know me. I have a daughter who is dying. And somewhere in the city, the woman he destroyed was waiting for him to prove he could be something other than the monster she remembered." He moved before he could think himself out of it. Keys. Wallet. Phone. Nothing else mattered. The elevator carried him down 43 floors, and with each passing number, his carefully constructed world crumbled a little more. But to understand that night, to truly comprehend the weight of that phone call and everything it represented, we must go back 18 years to the beginning. To a time when Marcus Donovan believed he had finally found something worth more than all his billions combined. To the woman who changed everything. The charity gala was exactly the kind of event Marcus usually avoided. Crystal chandeliers casting fractured light across marble floors. Women in gowns that cost more than most people earned in a year. Men in tuxedos, discussing quarterly returns and acquisition strategies while pretending to care about whatever cause had gathered them together. He was 34 years old, the youngest CEO of a Fortune 500 company, with a reputation for ruthlessness in business and emotional unavailability in everything else. His presence at the gala was obligatory, not optional. His company had donated enough money that his absence would have been noticed. He was nursing his second whiskey, counting the minutes until he could reasonably leave, when he heard her voice. "With all due respect, councilman, throwing money at a problem without addressing the systemic issues that created it is not charity. It is a bandage on a bullet wound." Marcus turned toward the sound. A small group had formed near the bar, and at its center stood a woman who looked nothing like anyone else in the room. She wore a simple black dress that could not have cost more than $100. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style that suggested she had more important things to do than spend hours on her appearance. And she was going toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful city councilmen, a man who had been on Marcus's payroll for years. The councilman laughed, the dismissive kind of laugh that powerful men use when they feel threatened. "And what would you suggest, Miss Mitchell?" "Zara Mitchell. And I would suggest listening to the women in these shelters instead of assuming you know what they need. Half of them are fleeing domestic violence. The other half are escaping poverty cycles that your housing policies created in the first place. They do not need your galas and your photo opportunities. They need affordable childcare, job training, and landlords who cannot evict them for reporting abuse." The councilman's face reddened. "Young lady, I have been working on these issues for 20 years. And the homeless population has tripled in that time. So maybe it is time to try something different." Marcus found himself moving closer without consciously deciding to. Something about her, the fire in her eyes, the absolute refusal to be intimidated, pulled at him like gravity. The councilman sputtered something about respecting experience and walked away, his entourage following. The woman watched him go with an expression that suggested she had expected nothing more. That was impressive. She turned at his voice, and for the first time, Marcus got a clear look at her face. She was beautiful, but not in the polished, manufactured way of the women he usually encountered. Her beauty was natural, unguarded, almost defiant. And when her eyes met his, he felt something in his chest rearrange itself. "Which part?" she asked. "The part where I committed career suicide by insulting a city councilman, or the part where I failed to change anything anyway? The part where you said what everyone in this room was thinking but was too afraid to say?" She studied him for a moment, her gaze assessing. "You are Marcus Donovan. You know who I am. Everyone knows who you are. Your face is on the side of half the buildings downtown. And yet you do not look impressed. Should I be?" She took a sip of her drink, something clear and simple. "You made a lot of money and put your name on a lot of things. That is not the same as doing something that matters." He should have been offended. People did not talk to him like that. But instead, he found himself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in months. "What is your name again?" "Zara Mitchell. I am a public defender. Which means I spend my days trying to get justice for people your corporations have stepped on." "My corporations?" "The system you benefit from. The one that makes it impossible for people to escape poverty while making it effortless for people like you to multiply your wealth. And yet here you are, at a gala funded by people like me. Because the alternative was staying home while powerful people decided the fate of vulnerable women without listening to a single one of them." Her jaw tightened. "Sometimes you have to enter the lion's den to make the lion listen. And is that what I am? A lion? I do not know yet." She set down her glass. "But I suppose we will find out." She walked away without another word, leaving Marcus standing there with his whiskey and a feeling he could not quite identify. Something had shifted. Something had opened. He found out her name, her office, her schedule. He was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, but for the first time in his adult life, he wanted something that could not be purchased. The courtship was unconventional by any standard. He showed up at her office with flowers. She handed them to her assistant and told him she was busy. He sent a car to pick her up for dinner. She sent it back with a note that read, "I have 2 legs. I can walk." He offered to donate $1 million to her legal aid organization. She called him directly for the first time, her voice sharp with irritation. "If you think you can buy my attention, you fundamentally misunderstand who I am." "That is not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "I meant that you care about things worth caring about. And I want to help." Silence stretched across the phone line. Then she said something that stopped his heart. "Fine. You want to help? Show up at the courthouse tomorrow at 8 in the morning. I have a client who is about to lose her children because she cannot afford a lawyer who is not overworked and underpaid. Watch what real work looks like. Then we can talk about your donation." He showed up at 7:30. The courthouse was nothing like the boardrooms he was accustomed to. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Plastic chairs lined walls covered in peeling paint. And Zara moved through it all like she belonged there, nodding at clerks, exchanging words with exhausted-looking attorneys, stopping to kneel beside a woman on a bench who was clearly trying not to cry. The case itself was brutal. A single mother, accused of neglect because she had left her children with a neighbor to work a double shift. The prosecutor painted her as irresponsible. Zara painted her as a woman doing everything humanly possible to provide for her family in a system designed to make that impossible. She won. The judge ruled in her client's favor, and the woman collapsed into Zara's arms, sobbing with relief. Marcus watched from the back of the courtroom, and something fundamental shifted inside him. This was what mattered. Not the towers with his name on them. Not the quarterly returns. This. Helping people who had no one else in their corner. Afterward, outside the courthouse, Zara found him leaning against his car. "You stayed for the whole thing. You asked me to watch. So I watched. What did you learn?" He considered the question seriously. "That the system is broken. That most people in that courtroom are just trying to survive. And that you are the most remarkable person I have ever met." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she smiled. Buy me coffee. Not the expensive kind. The diner across the street. And we can talk about your donation. That was their first real conversation. It lasted 4 hours. She told him about growing up poor, about her mother working 3 jobs, about the day she decided to become a lawyer after watching her family get evicted because they could not afford legal representation. He told her about growing up wealthy but emotionally starved, about a father who measured love in productivity and a mother who stayed in a loveless marriage for the sake of appearances. They were opposites in almost every way. And yet, somehow, they understood each other. The relationship that followed defied every expectation. Marcus was accustomed to women who wanted access to his world. Zara actively resisted it. When he invited her to a corporate event, she declined, saying she had work to do. When he offered to buy her a new car, she laughed and told him her 10-year-old sedan worked perfectly fine. When he suggested she quit her job and let him fund any project she wanted, she looked at him like he had suggested she stop breathing. "I need to be useful," she explained. "Not comfortable. Useful." And slowly, without realizing it was happening, Marcus began to change. He started asking questions about the people his developments displaced. He started reviewing labor practices at his overseas manufacturing facilities. He started listening, really listening, to the janitors and assistants and security guards who kept his empire running. His business associates noticed the shift. "She is changing you," his partner said during a lunch meeting, his tone somewhere between amused and concerned. "And I am not sure it is for the better." "She is making me better," Marcus replied. "There is a difference." The proposal came 10 months after that first conversation in the diner. He did not rent a stadium or hire a skywriter or orchestrate some elaborate public display. Instead, he took her back to the same courthouse where he had first watched her work. They sat on the same plastic chairs in the same fluorescent-lit hallway, and he pulled out a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious. "I know I am not who you expected," he said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. "I know I come from a world you do not trust, and honestly, I do not trust it either anymore. But you make me want to be someone worth trusting. So I am asking, will you let me try?" She looked at the ring. Then she looked at him. "No prenup." "What?" "If you are asking me to marry you, I am asking you to trust me completely. No safety nets. No exit strategies. Just us." He did not hesitate. "Just us." She took the ring. The wedding was small by his standards and large by hers. His mother attended but spent the entire reception looking mildly horrified. His business partner gave a toast that felt more like a warning than a celebration. But none of it mattered, because Zara was beside him, radiant in a simple white dress, laughing with her whole body at something her college roommate had said. That night, in the suite of a hotel she had insisted could not be too extravagant, she made him a promise that would echo through the years to come. "I will never give you a reason to doubt me. No matter what happens, no matter how hard things get, you will always know exactly where you stand with me. That is what I promise you." He believed her completely. And for 3 perfect months, his belief was rewarded. Their life together settled into a rhythm that Marcus had never known was possible. She woke early to review case files. He made coffee, something he had never done for himself, let alone another person. She hummed melodies from her childhood while folding his shirts, insisting that his staff did it with too much anger and not enough love. He watched her move through the mansion that still felt too large, and marveled at how she made it feel like home. Mornings became sacred. She would kiss his forehead before leaving for court. He would remind her to take the car, the driver, anything that would keep her safe. She would laugh and tell him she would walk like a normal human being. Normal. That word she used so often. The word that kept him grounded. The word that reminded him that wealth was supposed to be a tool, not an identity. He had no way of knowing that normal was about to shatter. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, precisely at noon. His assistant brought it in with his lunch, her expression uncomfortable. This came by courier. Marked confidential. Marcus took the envelope without concern. Confidential documents were part of daily business. But when he opened it, his hands began to tremble. Photographs. His wife sitting in a coffee shop with a man he did not recognize. The angle suggested they were holding hands across the table, though the image was grainy enough to be ambiguous. Another photo showed them walking together in a park, the man's hand seemingly on her lower back. A third caught them outside a hotel, mid-conversation, standing too close. Marcus's chest constricted. His vision narrowed to those images, to the intimacy they suggested, to the betrayal they implied. The accompanying letter was typed, anonymous. Your wife is not who you think she is. These meetings have been happening for months. I thought you deserved to know before you are made a complete fool. He read the words 3 times. 4 times. 5. There had to be an explanation. Zara had never given him a single reason to doubt her. But the photos sat on his desk like accusations, and his mind began constructing narratives he did not want to believe. He called his business partner, the man he had worked beside for nearly a decade, the man he trusted with his professional life if not his personal one. The man came immediately, studied the photographs, and shook his head slowly. I hate to say this, but I have seen this before. My brother went through the exact same thing. There could be an explanation, Marcus said, hating how desperate he sounded. Of course there could be. His partner leaned forward, voice dropping. But you need to ask yourself something. A woman from her background, suddenly living in luxury. No prenup protecting you. What if this whole thing was strategic? What if she has been playing you from the start? The poison worked slowly. Marcus tried calling Zara, but she did not answer. She was in her community meeting, phone silenced like always. But his mind, infected now with suspicion, interpreted her silence as evasion. More photographs arrived the next day. Then a copy of a restaurant receipt with a handwritten note at the bottom that read, "Tonight was perfect." The handwriting looked similar to Zara's, though Marcus could not be certain. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He hired a private investigator who came back with reports of regular meetings, always at discreet locations, always with the same man. The investigator could not confirm infidelity, but he could not rule it out either. The ambiguity became its own form of torture. When he finally confronted Zara, he had been awake for 40 hours, marinating in betrayal he had convinced himself was real. His eyes were hollow, his voice cold, his heart wrapped in armor that she did not deserve. Who is he? Zara looked up from her case files, confused. Who is who? The man you have been meeting. Do not lie to me. I have photographs. The color drained from her face. But Marcus could not see shock. Could not see innocence. Could only see confirmation of his worst fears. What are you talking about? He threw the envelope at her feet. Photographs scattered across the floor of the bedroom they had shared, the bedroom where she had promised never to give him reason to doubt. She picked them up slowly, hands trembling as she looked through the images. When she looked back up at him, there were tears in her eyes. Marcus, this is Malcolm. He is a social worker I have been collaborating with on the shelter project. These photos make it look like something it is not. Then why did you not tell me about him? I did. She stood, frustration rising in her voice. I have mentioned Malcolm a dozen times. You never ask details because you are not interested in my work. You smile and nod and then go back to your phone. The accuracy of that observation should have stopped him. But pride, that ancient poison, was already coursing through his veins. So it is my fault you are sneaking around? I am not sneaking around. We have public meetings about public projects. Marcus, look at me. Her voice cracked. You know me. You know I would never. I do not know anything anymore. His voice broke. All I know is that my wife has been meeting another man for months, keeping it quiet. And now there are photographs of you two looking very comfortable together. Because we are friends, she said desperately. Colleagues. That is what adults do. They work together without it meaning something sordid. But he could not hear her. The doubt had roots now, deep and thorny. Every word she spoke sounded like a defense, and every defense sounded like a confession. The argument lasted hours. She produced emails, calendar entries, documentation of the shelter project. He dismissed all of it as manufactured cover. She begged him to talk to Malcolm directly. He refused to contact the man who he believed had been in his wife's bed. By midnight, they had reached an impasse of exhaustion and devastation. I do not know how to prove something that did not happen, Zara said finally, her voice raw. I can only tell you the truth and hope you believe me. And if you do not believe me, then you never really knew me at all. Maybe I did not. The words hit her like a physical blow. She stared at him, searching his face for the man she had married, the man who had sat in a courthouse and watched her fight for justice, the man who had promised to trust her completely. She did not find him. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Marcus had resources, connections, attorneys who could make things disappear or appear as needed. Zara had her dignity and the truth, neither of which held much weight in legal warfare. She signed the papers without fighting for a single cent of his fortune. Her attorney had urged her to claim at least a portion of what she was entitled to, but she refused. I do not want his money. I never wanted his money. I just wanted him. On the final day, after the signatures were complete and the marriage was legally dissolved, Zara appeared at Marcus's office unannounced. His assistant tried to stop her, but something in her expression made the young woman step aside. She found him at his desk, staring at contracts he was not really reading. 5 minutes. Her voice was steady despite everything. Just listen to me for 5 minutes without your attorneys or your pride in the room. I have nothing to say to you. Then just listen. She took a breath that seemed to require all her strength. I love you. I have only ever loved you. I do not know who sent those photographs or why they are trying to destroy us, but I swear on everything sacred that I have never been unfaithful. He looked at her, and for one brief moment, he saw his wife. The woman who folded his shirts with love, who made their mansion a home, who laughed with her whole body and challenged him to be better. But then his partner's voice echoed in his head. A woman from her background, suddenly living in luxury. I want you out by Friday. His voice was hollow. Take your clothes. Everything else stays. Friday. She left his office. And that should have been the end. But that night, as Marcus sat alone in a house that suddenly felt cavernous, Zara returned one final time. She stood in the doorway of their bedroom, small and devastated, wearing the same dress she had worn the night he proposed. The sight of it cut through his defenses for just a moment before he rebuilt them. I came to tell you something. Her voice was quiet, defeated. Not to change your mind, because clearly your mind is made of stone now, but because you deserve to know the truth about what you are throwing away. I do not want to hear it. I am done fighting. I am done begging. I am leaving you and your mansion and your suspicion and your pride. She took a step closer, and he could see the tears streaming down her face. But I want you to know that years from now, when you finally discover you were wrong, when you finally learn there was never anyone else, you will have to live with what you destroyed. She pulled off her wedding ring. The simple band she had chosen herself, insisting that anything larger would be impractical for a woman who spent her days in courthouses. She set it on the marble floor between them. And then she walked away. Marcus stood frozen, listening to her footsteps echo through the house. He heard the front door open. He heard it close. He heard silence swallow everything. He walked to the window and watched her move down the long driveway. She had kicked off her heels at some point, and now she walked barefoot, one hand pressed against her stomach in a gesture he did not understand. Behind her, his mansion blazed with lights. Ahead of her, only darkness. And in that moment, Marcus Donovan, who had built an empire on calculated risks, realized too late that the only gamble that truly mattered was the one he had just catastrophically lost. But what he could not see, what he could not possibly know, was that Zara was walking away carrying more than her broken heart. She was carrying 2 pieces of him that would grow into the only second chance he would ever get. The women's shelter smelled like industrial soap and resignation. Zara sat on a narrow cot in a room shared with 5 other women, her small backpack containing everything she now owned. 3 changes of clothes. A water bottle. Her expired bar association documents that she would need to renew if she ever worked again. And the pregnancy test she had taken in a gas station bathroom that morning. 2 pink lines. 2 lives depending on her. 2 reasons she could not fall apart. First time. The woman on the next cot was older, with kind eyes and scars on her arms that told stories Zara did not need to hear. First time being homeless. Not my first time being broken. The woman nodded with understanding. Difference is, broken can heal. You will see. Zara's body had other plans. Morning sickness arrived with a vengeance, making it impossible to hide her condition. The shelter coordinator, a steel-spined woman named Ruth, called her into the cramped office near the entrance. You are pregnant. It was not a question. Zara nodded. Father in the picture? No. Child support? No. Ruth studied her for a long moment. You know you have options. Resources. This does not have to be your path. It is already my path. Zara placed her hand on her still flat belly. I am keeping them. Them. It feels like more than one. I do not know why. Just a feeling. Ruth's expression softened slightly. Then you need to start planning. This place has a 2-month limit. After that, you are on your own. Zara found work at a textile factory, a grey building on the outskirts of the city where questions were not asked and paychecks were handed out in cash. The work was punishing. 12-hour shifts operating machinery that turned fabric into cheap clothing destined for discount stores. Her hands developed calluses within the first week. Her back ached constantly. Her body swelled with pregnancy while she stood at her station, drinking water when supervisors were not looking, hiding her growing belly under oversized shirts. The other workers, mostly immigrant women with their own survival stories, watched over her with quiet solidarity. They snuck her extra food from their lunches. They covered for her when she had to vomit in the bathroom. They did not ask questions because they understood that some stories were too painful to tell. At 6 months, the ultrasound technician at the free clinic looked up from the screen with surprise. You are having twins. Zara's breath caught. Twins. A boy and a girl. The technician showed her the screen, pointing out 2 distinct heartbeats, 2 separate forms curled together in the darkness of her womb. Both looking healthy, the technician confirmed. Zara left the clinic in a daze, her hands pressed against her belly where Marcus's children were growing. She should have felt anger. She should have felt the urge to call him, to demand he face the consequences of his accusations. But she felt only a fierce, protective love for these 2 beings who had not asked to be born into chaos. That night, lying on her narrow cot in the shelter, she named them silently. Mia for the girl. A name that meant mine, belonging, something that could never be taken away. Elijah for the boy. A name that meant light, because he would be born into darkness and she needed to believe he would find brightness anyway. The birth was lonely. Ruth drove her to the county hospital when contractions started, dropping her off with a quick squeeze of the shoulder and a promise that felt like a prayer. You are stronger than you think. Zara did not feel strong. She felt terrified and alone, gripping the bed rails as her body tore itself apart, bringing life into the world. No partner holding her hand. No family in the waiting room. Just her and 2 babies fighting their way into existence. Mia arrived first, screaming with indignation at being forced from the warmth of her mother's body. Elijah followed minutes later, quieter, his eyes seeming to take in the fluorescent lights with solemn observation. Twins, the exhausted nurse said, placing them both on Zara's chest. Congratulations, Mama. Zara looked down at their tiny faces and felt something inside her shift permanently. These children would never know abandonment. They would never feel unwanted. They would never doubt their worth. She would build them a life from nothing, and it would be enough. The months that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and relentless forward motion. Zara found a subsidized apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots occasionally punctuated the night. It had 1 bedroom, cracked linoleum, and windows that did not close properly. But it was theirs. She returned to her education, taking night classes online while the twins slept, earning a degree in social work while breastfeeding during lectures, typing papers with 1 hand while rocking a cradle with her foot. The children grew. Mia was fire from the beginning. Curious about everything, reaching for wires and switches, fascinated by how things worked. By the time she was 3, she had taken apart their alarm clock and reassembled it correctly. By 5, she was building simple circuits from salvaged electronics she found in dumpsters behind repair shops. Elijah was water. Quieter, more observant, with a sensitivity that sometimes worried Zara. But when he started writing, filling notebook after notebook with stories that seemed impossible for his age, she understood. He processed the world through words the way his sister processed it through machines. Zara talked to them constantly, narrating their life like they could understand every word. We are going to the store now. We will walk because the bus does not come for an hour. But it is good exercise. Fresh air. See the leaves. Red and gold. Beautiful things are free. She refused bitterness. Some nights, alone after the children slept, she would feel the weight of what Marcus had thrown away. But she never spoke his name to them, never poisoned their minds with her pain. Instead, she told them a story, a fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a king who loved a queen. They built a beautiful kingdom together. But a wicked wizard convinced the king that the queen had betrayed him. And the king believed the lie. So the queen had to leave the kingdom, and she was very sad. But she carried with her the most precious gifts the king had ever given her, even though he did not know about them. And she raised those gifts with all the love they both should have shared. What happened to the king? Mia asked when she was old enough to understand the story. The king lived in his castle alone, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. Did he make a mistake? Elijah's voice was always softer, more measured. Zara smoothed his hair, choosing her words carefully. He made a choice based on fear instead of love. And fear always costs more than people realize. The children grew into extraordinary young people despite the poverty surrounding them. Mia excelled at anything involving numbers and systems. She solved puzzles intended for much older children. Her mind worked in patterns and sequences that left her teachers astonished. By 15, she had earned a scholarship to a prestigious summer STEM program. She refused it quietly, without telling her mother, because she knew the travel costs were impossible. Elijah devoured books and wrote stories in cramped handwriting on whatever paper he could find. His observations about people and their motivations were eerily perceptive. Teachers called Zara to say they had never seen anything like his writing, that he had a gift that needed nurturing. But gifts required money, and money was something they did not have. Zara worked multiple jobs. Social worker by day, teaching community classes in the evening, cleaning offices late at night while the children did homework in break rooms. She was exhausted always, worn thin by the constant demands of survival. But she never let them see her break. "Why do you work so hard, Mama?" Mia asked once, watching Zara ice her swollen feet after a triple shift. "Because you two are worth every single tired bone in my body." The king in the story, Elijah said quietly from his corner where he was always writing something. "Does he ever find out about the gifts?" Zara met her son's eyes, seeing in them a reflection of the man who had thrown her away. "I do not know, baby. Some stories do not have endings yet." But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Marcus Donovan had no idea what he had lost. And if life had any justice, he would spend the rest of his days drowning in that ignorance. The universe, however, had different plans. Plans written in genetic code. Waiting in the shadows. Counting down to a moment when the past and present would collide with the force of a 17-year-old girl's kidneys beginning to fail. While Zara was building a life from nothing, Marcus was watching his everything crumble into dust. The penthouse became a mausoleum. 32 rooms, most of them untouched, gathering dust behind doors that never opened. He wandered through his empire of marble and glass like a spectre, attending meetings out of habit, making decisions that affected thousands while unable to decide whether to eat breakfast. Her reading chair sat by the window in the master bedroom. He never moved it. Never allowed anyone to clean it. Sometimes he stood in the doorway at dawn, half expecting to see her there with her coffee and her case files, sunlight turning her skin to bronze. The chair stayed empty. His sister Victoria was the only person who regularly invaded his isolation. She arrived unannounced, letting herself in with the key he had foolishly given her, and found him in his study pretending to work. "You look like death. Good morning to you too." She sat down, uninvited, studying him with the brutal honesty only siblings possess. "When was the last time you ate a real meal? Or slept for more than a few hours? Or left this tomb you have built for yourself?" "I am fine." "You are not fine. You have not been fine since you threw away the best thing that ever happened to you." His jaw tightened. "I do not want to discuss this." "Of course you do not. Because discussing it would mean admitting you were wrong." Victoria leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Did you ever find proof, Marcus? After all these years, did you ever actually confirm she was unfaithful?" The question cut deeper than she knew. The photographs were circumstantial at best. You never found receipts for hotel rooms. Never found love letters. Never found a single concrete piece of evidence. Because there was not any to find. You do not know that. Neither do you. But you destroyed your marriage anyway. He wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. Because Victoria was right. Over the years, in moments of terrible clarity, Marcus had questioned everything. Had hired investigators long after the divorce was final, trying to find something, anything, that would justify what he had done. They found nothing. Malcolm, the man in the photographs, was exactly what Zara had claimed. A social worker. Happily married with 3 children. No history of affairs. No romantic connection to Zara beyond professional collaboration on shelter projects. The anonymous letters had stopped after the divorce. The photographer had never been identified. Marcus had traced the origin of the photographs to a disposable email address that led nowhere. And slowly, over months that turned into years, a horrifying possibility had taken root. He had been played. Someone had wanted to destroy his marriage. And he had handed them the weapon. Marcus had confronted his business partner eventually, after discovering financial irregularities that suggested his trusted colleague had been embezzling for years. "Did you send those photographs?" His partner had smiled. Cold. Calculating. Utterly unrepentant. "Does it matter now? You are free of her. You can focus on what is important." Marcus had severed all ties that day. But the damage was permanent. Zara was gone, and he had no idea where. He had tried finding her. Hired the best investigators money could buy. But Zara Mitchell had vanished completely, leaving no trail, no forwarding address, nothing. It was as if she had been erased from existence. The videos remained on his phone. He watched them late at night, whiskey burning his throat, her laughter filling the empty study like a ghost that refused to leave. Their wedding. Their honeymoon. Mundane moments of her cooking breakfast, making terrible jokes, dancing in the kitchen to music only she could hear. "You are watching them again," Victoria said during one of her visits, recognizing the hollow look in his eyes. "I cannot help it." "Then do something about it. Hire better investigators. Put up billboards. Something other than slowly dying in this house. What is the point? Even if I found her, what would I say? Sorry I ruined your life based on lies? Sorry I threw you away like trash?" She would be right to spit in my face. Maybe. But at least you would have tried. Marcus said nothing. Because the truth was more pathetic. He was afraid. Afraid of confirmation that she had moved on. Found happiness. Built a life that did not include him. Afraid of seeing in her eyes the complete absence of feeling, which would be worse than hatred. So he stayed in his mansion, surrounded by wealth that meant nothing, attending meetings out of habit, making decisions that affected thousands while unable to manage his own existence. His bedroom was the worst. He kept everything exactly as it had been. Her clothes still hung in the closet. Her books remained on the nightstand. Her pillows stayed on her side of the bed. He never touched that side. Slept on his edge, staring across the vast empty space that might as well have been the Grand Canyon. "You did not lose her," Victoria said one evening, standing to leave after another failed intervention. "That would imply it was beyond your control. You threw her away. You chose pride over trust. That is worse than loss. That is voluntary destruction." After she left, Marcus walked through the mansion, really seeing it for the first time in years. The dining room where they had never eaten meals because it was too formal, too cold. The living room with furniture no one sat on. The kitchen that prepared food for one person in a space designed for families. His footsteps echoed on marble floors, and he realized Victoria was right. This was not a home. It was a monument to absence. A shrine to everything he had destroyed. One night, unable to sleep, he got in one of his cars and drove with no destination. The roads passed in a blur, and he found himself in neighborhoods he had never seen, where children played in streets and families gathered on porches, where poverty and joy somehow coexisted. He stopped at a park, watching a woman push a little girl on a swing. The child was laughing, shrieking with delight, while the mother smiled with exhaustion and love. Something cracked inside his chest. That could have been his life. Should have been his life. Children. Laughter. Purpose beyond the accumulation of meaningless achievements. He drove home as darkness fell, returning to his mansion that blazed with lights but offered no warmth. Tomorrow would be the same. And the next day. And the next. An endless succession of identical moments stretching toward a grave he would reach having accomplished nothing that mattered. Marcus Donovan, master of the material world, stood alone in his empire of dust and wondered how a man could be so wealthy and so bankrupt at the same time. The answer, of course, was simple. He had gambled everything on pride. And lost the only thing worth keeping. And somewhere in the world, his former wife was either flourishing or drowning. And he would never know which. Because he had forfeited the right to ask. But the universe keeps accounts that human beings cannot see. And Marcus's debt, compounded over years with interest paid in regret, was about to come due. In the form of a daughter he had never met. Whose kidneys were failing. Whose only hope was the father who had thrown her mother away before knowing she existed. 17 years after Zara walked barefoot down that long driveway, her daughter Mia started feeling tired. At first, it seemed like normal teenage exhaustion. School was demanding. She was taking advanced courses, pushing herself harder than anyone asked her to, driven by some internal engine that never seemed to rest. Her mother had always worked multiple jobs. Mia had inherited that relentlessness. But the fatigue did not go away. It got worse. She started waking up with swollen ankles. Then swollen hands. She noticed she was urinating less frequently, and when she did, the color was wrong. Darker. More concerning. She hid it from her mother. Zara had enough to worry about without adding medical bills to the list. Mia found free clinic information online and went alone, telling her mother she was studying at the library. The clinic was crowded and underfunded, staffed by exhausted volunteers who did their best with limited resources. The blood tests came back in 3 days. The doctor who called her back into the cramped examination room looked like she had not slept in years. She sat down heavily, the weight of bad news already pressing on her shoulders. "I need you to bring your mother in. This is not something I can discuss with a minor alone." Mia felt ice forming in her stomach. "What is wrong with me?" "Your kidneys are failing. Both of them." The doctor's voice was gentle but direct. "This is a genetic condition. It is advanced. We need to discuss treatment options with your legal guardian." Mia did not tell her mother that night. Or the next night. She researched kidney failure online, reading about dialysis and transplants and survival rates, understanding the medical terminology through sheer force of will. She understood enough to know that this would destroy her mother. But bodies do not wait for convenient timing. 3 weeks after the clinic visit, Mia collapsed at school. She was in the middle of a physics lecture, taking notes on electromagnetic induction, when the room started spinning. She tried to stand, to excuse herself to the bathroom, but her legs refused to cooperate. The floor rushed up to meet her. She woke in an ambulance, her brother Elijah's terrified face hovering above her. "Mia, can you hear me? Mia." She could hear the sirens. Could feel the vehicle moving. Could see paramedics working around her, their voices urgent and professional. "Where is Mom?" "She is meeting us at the hospital." Elijah's hand gripped hers tightly. "What is going on? What is wrong with you?" Mia closed her eyes because she could not bear to see his fear. "I should have told you. I am sorry. I should have told you." The hospital room became a prison of machines and monitors. Zara arrived within the hour, still wearing her work clothes, her face a mask of controlled terror. She had learned long ago to hide her fear from her children, to be the rock they could cling to when the world crumbled. But this was different. This was her daughter, pale and small in a hospital bed, connected to tubes and wires and beeping devices that measured whether she was still alive. The nephrologist was a tall man with grey hair and kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. He sat down with them the following morning, after the overnight tests had confirmed what the clinic had already discovered. Mia's kidneys are functioning at less than 15%. This is end-stage renal disease. We need to start dialysis immediately to keep her stable while we explore transplant options. Transplant. Zara repeated the word like she was learning a foreign language. A kidney transplant is her best option for long-term survival. Dialysis can keep her alive, but it is not a permanent solution. She will need a new kidney from a compatible donor. Zara did not hesitate. "Test me. I am her mother. Take whatever she needs." The doctor nodded, but his expression suggested complications ahead. "We will absolutely test you. However, I need to prepare you for the possibility that you may not be compatible. This particular condition is genetic. The markers are very specific. Living-related donors are ideal, but sometimes there are chromosomal factors that prevent a match. What does that mean? It means the gene she inherited may have come from her father. And if that is the case, his cells may be more compatible than yours. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zara felt the room tilt. Felt 17 years of carefully constructed walls begin to tremble. Her father is not in the picture. The doctor was quiet for a moment. I understand that family situations can be complicated, but I need you to consider all options. Your daughter's life may depend on it. Elijah, who had been sitting silently in the corner of the room, spoke for the first time. Mia has the same thing, does she not? This genetic condition. I have it too. The doctor looked at him with an expression that confirmed the worst. We should test you as well. If this is inherited, there is a significant chance you carry the same markers. You may be in the early stages of the same disease. Zara felt the ground give way beneath her. Both of them. Both of her children. Both carrying a time bomb in their genetics, passed down from a man who did not know they existed. A man who had thrown her away. A man who might be the only one who could save them. The testing took 2 days. 2 days of blood draws and imaging and waiting in rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear. 2 days of watching her daughter deteriorate on dialysis, watching her son pretend to be brave while his own test results loomed. The results came back on a Friday afternoon. Zara was not compatible. The chromosomal mismatch was rare but absolute. Her cells could not save her daughter. Elijah was tested as a potential donor, but the news was worse. He carried the same genetic markers. The same disease. His kidneys were functioning now, but the deterioration had already begun. Within years, perhaps sooner, he would need the same treatment as his sister. And neither of them could save the other. The nephrologist sat with Zara alone, after the children had been given sedatives to help them rest. I have been doing this for 30 years, he said quietly. I have seen families torn apart by moments like this. I have also seen them come together in ways no one expected. Whatever happened between you and their father, whatever pain exists there, your children are innocent in all of it. They deserve every chance at life. Zara stared at the floor, seeing nothing. He does not know they exist. I understand. He threw me away. Accused me of things I never did. Destroyed everything we had based on lies someone fed him. I have spent 17 years building a life that specifically excluded him from it. I understand that too. And now you are telling me he is the only one who can save them. I am telling you that his genetic material may be their best chance. I am not telling you what to do with that information. That is your choice. She sat in the hospital chapel that night, long after visiting hours ended. The pews were empty. The lighting was dim. And the weight of an impossible choice pressed down on her until she could barely breathe. Her phone sat in her lap, his number still stored after all these years. She had kept it not out of hope. There had been no hope. She had kept it out of some masochistic need to remember. To look at those 10 digits and recall what trust felt like when it shattered. Her finger hovered over the call button. If she made this call, Marcus would learn about the children he had never known. He would have power over their survival. He could refuse. Could demand things. Could insert himself into the life she had carefully constructed without him. But if she did not make this call, her children would die. Both of them. Mia on dialysis, waiting for a kidney that might never come. Elijah watching his sister die, knowing the same fate was waiting for him. And all her pride. All her justified anger. All her carefully guarded independence. Would mean nothing if Mia and Elijah were not alive to benefit from it. She pressed the button before she could reconsider. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. She almost hung up. Almost chose pride over her children's lives. Then a voice answered. Unchanged by time. Familiar as her own heartbeat. Hello? Zara's mouth went dry. Her carefully prepared speech evaporated. All that remained was truth. Raw and desperate. Marcus. I need to tell you something about 18 years ago. The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. Then his voice came through again, different now. Shattered. Zara. And from across 17 years and a chasm of betrayal, she began to speak. What she told him would change everything. What he would do with that information would determine whether their children lived or died. And in a hospital room down the hall, a 17-year-old girl lay sleeping, unaware that her entire future was being decided by two people who had once loved each other completely and destroyed each other absolutely. The next few hours would determine everything. The silence on the phone stretched for an eternity. Marcus gripped the device so tightly his knuckles turned white, his heart slamming against his ribs with enough force to crack bone. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times. 1,000,000 times. In dreams that left him gasping awake at 3 in the morning. In fantasies where he found the right words, made the right apologies, somehow undid 18 years of devastation. But he had never imagined it would begin like this. Zara. He said her name like a prayer and a curse combined. Where have you been? I looked everywhere. I hired investigators. I wrote letters that came back unopened. She cut him off, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. I did not call for a reunion. I did not call for explanations. And I certainly did not call to hear about your suffering. I called because my children are dying and you are the only one who can save them. The words hit him like a physical blow. Our children. They have been mine for 17 years. You are just a donor. The cruelty was intentional. He could hear it in her voice. She wanted him to feel the distance. Wanted him to understand that he had forfeited any claim to their hearts long before he knew they existed. But underneath the ice, he heard something else. Desperation. Terror. The sound of a mother watching her children slip away. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning. I need to understand. There was a pause. He could almost hear her wrestling with herself, deciding how much to reveal, how much to withhold. Then she spoke. I was pregnant when you threw me out. 2 months. I did not know at the time. I found out 3 weeks after the divorce was final. The room tilted. Marcus reached for the edge of his desk, steadying himself. Twins. A boy and a girl. Mia and Elijah. They are 17 now. And Mia's kidneys are failing. End-stage renal disease. She needs a transplant immediately. I am not compatible. Elijah carries the same genetic markers. He is showing early signs of the same condition. Without treatment, they will both die. Each word was a bullet, precise and devastating. Marcus's vision blurred. He thought he might be having a heart attack. His chest was constricting, his breathing ragged, his entire body rebelling against the information it was being forced to process. I have children. You have genetic material in 2 human beings. Whether you have children remains to be seen. I want to help. Whatever you need. Blood, bone marrow, a kidney, anything. Take all of it. Take everything I have. That is exactly what I am asking you to do. Her voice softened slightly, exhaustion bleeding through the anger. Mercy General Hospital. The transplant unit. Dr. Okonkwo is the nephrologist. He is expecting you. I am coming right now. I will drive. No. Her voice sharpened again. You will hire a car service. You will arrive sober and rational. Because if you show up intoxicated or emotional and disturb my children while they are fighting for their lives, I will have security remove you and your cells be damned. I will find another way. I have not had a drink in 3 years. Silence. Then, quieter. Good for you. Zara. His voice cracked. I am so sorry. For everything. For what I did. For what I believed. I cannot do this right now. I do not have the capacity for your apologies. My daughter is on dialysis. My son is terrified. I have been awake for 48 hours. The only thing I need from you is your presence at this hospital and your cooperation with the medical team. I understand. One more thing. Her voice dropped, and he heard something crack in her carefully controlled facade. I am not asking for us. I am not asking for forgiveness or explanations or anything to do with what happened between us. I am asking for them. They are innocent in all of this. They deserve to live. I know. Do you? Because once you walk through those hospital doors, you cannot unsee them. You cannot pretend they do not exist. They are real, Marcus. They are brilliant and kind and everything good that we might have been together. And if you help save them and then disappear back to your penthouse, I will make sure they never forgive you for that abandonment either. I will not disappear. You do not get to make promises anymore. You lost that right when you called me a liar and threw me away. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to silence. Then he moved. Keys. Wallet. Phone. Nothing else mattered. He called his assistant at home, waking him from sleep, his voice commanding despite the tremor underneath. I need a driver. Now. Mercy General Hospital. It is an emergency. Sir, it is nearly 3 in the morning. Now. He paced while waiting, his mind reeling with calculations he could not complete. 17 years. His children were 17 years old. Nearly adults. And he had missed everything. First words. First steps. First days of school. Every birthday. Every nightmare. Every scraped knee and broken heart and moment of triumph. All of it. Gone. Stolen by his own stupidity. And now they were dying. His children, whom he had never held, never known, never protected, were dying from a genetic condition he had passed to them. His fault twice over. First for the DNA. Second for not being there to notice symptoms, to get early treatment, to do whatever fathers were supposed to do. The driver arrived. Marcus climbed into the back of the sedan, giving the address, watching his building recede through the rear window. For 18 years, he had been dying slowly in that penthouse. And now he was rushing to a hospital where his children were dying quickly, hoping he could trade his slow death for their survival. Can you go faster? He asked the driver. Sir, I am already over the limit. I do not care. Go faster. The city passed in a blur of lights. Marcus tried calling Zara back. She did not answer. He typed and deleted a dozen text messages, each one sounding more pathetic than the last. None of them captured what he needed to say. None of them could bridge 17 years in a few sentences. So he stopped trying and just watched the streets roll by, counting the blocks between his empty life and the children he had never known. They arrived at Mercy General just after 4 in the morning. Marcus burst through the main entrance, wild-eyed and disheveled, approaching the information desk with an urgency that made the security guard reach for his radio. Dr. Okonkwo. Nephrology. Transplant unit. I was told to ask for him. The receptionist made a call, speaking in hushed tones, glancing at Marcus with an expression caught between suspicion and curiosity. Moments later, a tall man with graying temples and an air of quiet authority appeared in the lobby. Mr. Donovan. Yes. I am here for. He could not quite say the words. My children. Saying it out loud made it real. Dr. Okonkwo nodded, his expression professionally neutral but not unkind. Follow me. I will explain the situation as we walk. They moved through corridors that smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, unforgiving glow. I have explained the medical details to Ms. Mitchell, the doctor said. Your daughter Mia is in end-stage renal failure. Both kidneys are functioning at less than 10%. We have her on dialysis to keep her stable, but this is not a long-term solution. She needs a transplant. And my son, Elijah, has the same genetic markers. His kidneys are currently functioning at around 70%, but the deterioration has already begun. With treatment, we may be able to slow the progression. But eventually, he will need intervention as well. Marcus felt the weight of the words pressing down on him. I will give them whatever they need. The procedure is complex. We will need to extract a kidney from you and transplant it to Mia immediately. The surgery carries risks for both donor and recipient. Infection, bleeding, anesthetic complications. Your recovery will take weeks, and you will be living with one kidney for the rest of your life. I do not care about risks. You should care. You have a life to consider. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. No. I really do not. They reached the transplant ward. Dr. Okonkwo stopped outside a set of double doors. Before you go in, there is something you should understand. Ms. Mitchell has made her position very clear. You are here as a medical resource. Any relationship with the children, any access to them, is entirely at her discretion. I understand. Do you? Because I have seen situations like this before. Absent fathers showing up in crisis, expecting gratitude, expecting instant connection. These children have lived their entire lives without you. They have constructed their identities around your absence. Your presence now is as likely to cause harm as healing if not handled carefully. Marcus absorbed this. The doctor was not wrong. I am not here to force anything. I am here to save their lives. Whatever happens after that is up to them. Dr. Okonkwo studied him for a long moment. Then follow me. They walked through the double doors, into a corridor lined with private rooms. Through windows, Marcus could see patients connected to machines, families keeping vigil, the quiet drama of lives hanging in balance. And then he saw her. Zara stood outside one of the rooms, arms crossed, face carved from granite. She was thinner than he remembered, worn down by years of struggle, but unmistakably herself. When her eyes met his, he saw everything: rage, exhaustion, fear. And underneath it all, buried so deep she probably did not know it was there, the ghost of something that might once have been love. You came. Of course I came. She studied him, searching for something. He did not know if she found it. You can look. But you do not touch them. You do not speak to them yet. They are sedated anyway, but even when they wake, you have no right to their attention until I say otherwise. He nodded. She turned and led him to the window. And Marcus Donovan saw his children for the first time. 2 hospital beds, side by side. 2 17-year-olds, connected to monitors that beeped a steady rhythm of survival. The girl was pale, smaller than he expected, with dark hair spread across the pillow and features that somehow combined both his sharpness and Zara's softness. Even in sleep, there was something defiant about her. Something that refused to surrender. The boy was beside her, not in a bed of his own but in a chair he had pulled close, his hand wrapped around his sister's, his head resting on the mattress near her hip. He looked like Marcus. The same jawline. The same set of the shoulders. The same grey eyes, though they were closed now. They are beautiful, Marcus whispered. They are good, Zara corrected. Beautiful is superficial. They are good human beings. Kind and brilliant and humble, despite growing up with nothing. Despite having a father who never knew them. Despite a mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them fed. She turned to face him, and her eyes were wet now, though her voice remained steady. If you help save them, you will spend the rest of your life trying to deserve them. I know. No. You do not know. You cannot possibly know what it means to raise children alone. To watch them struggle and sacrifice and still somehow become extraordinary. You missed all of it, Marcus. Every moment that mattered. And no amount of kidney donation changes that. He accepted the words without defense. She was right. There was nothing he could say that would make any of this better. When can I be tested? Now. Dr. Okonkwo has a team standing by. If you are compatible, we can proceed with surgery as early as tomorrow evening. And if I am not compatible? She did not answer. She did not need to. The testing took 6 hours. Blood draws. Tissue typing. Cross-matching. Imaging to assess his kidney function. Psychological evaluation to ensure he understood the risks and was not being coerced. Marcus sat through all of it, answering questions mechanically, his mind elsewhere. Fixed on the image of those 2 teenagers in the hospital room. Fixed on 17 years of moments he would never get back. Finally, in the early afternoon, Dr. Okonkwo returned with results. You are a perfect match. Both genetically and immunologically. Your kidney will have the highest possible chance of success in your daughter's body. Marcus felt something release in his chest. A tension he had not known he was carrying. When can we do the surgery? Tomorrow evening. We need time to prep both you and Mia, run final tests, ensure she is stable enough for the procedure. But assuming nothing changes, we will proceed at 6 p.m. What about my son? Dr. Okonkwo hesitated. Elijah's condition is less urgent but still concerning. The same genetic therapy that will come from your donation may help stabilize his kidneys as well. We are exploring options. But right now, our priority is Mia. She is the one in immediate danger. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes. The doctor nodded and left. Marcus sat alone in the examination room, staring at the wall, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. He had children. His children were dying. He might be able to save them. And somewhere in this hospital, the woman he had loved and destroyed was keeping vigil over the lives he had unknowingly created. If you are feeling the weight of this moment, I want you to pause and reflect. Drop a comment below. Would you forgive someone who destroyed your life if they came back to save your child? And if you are new here, subscribe to join our community of storytellers who believe in redemption. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation and waiting. Marcus was confined to a pre-surgical suite, monitored and assessed, poked and prodded by nurses who treated him with professional detachment. He understood. To them, he was just another donor. Another body on the table. They did not know his story. Did not know that he had thrown away the only woman he ever loved based on lies, and was now trying to save the children he had never known. Around 4 in the afternoon, there was a knock on his door. He looked up, expecting another nurse, another round of vital signs. Instead, he found a young man standing in the doorway. Grey eyes. Sharp jawline. An expression that mixed curiosity with caution. His son. "You are him," Elijah said quietly. "Our father." Marcus's throat closed. He tried to speak, managed only a nod. "Mom does not want us talking to you. She made that very clear." Elijah stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "But I came anyway." "Why?" "Because I needed to see you. Needed to understand." He moved closer, studying Marcus with eyes that seemed to see everything. "My sister is dying. And you are here to save her. That matters. But it does not explain anything else. What do you want to know?" "Everything." Elijah sat down in the chair beside the bed, keeping distance but present. "Why you left. Why you never came back. Why Mom refuses to talk about you except in fairy tales she told us when we were children." Fairy tales? A king and a queen. A wicked wizard. Lies that destroyed a kingdom. Elijah's voice was flat, analytical. "She never used your name. Never gave us details. Just the outline of a story that explained why we grew up without a father." Marcus felt each word like a knife. "What did she tell you about me? That you made a choice based on fear instead of love. That fear always costs more than people realize." She was right. Elijah waited, clearly expecting more. "I was manipulated." Marcus spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "Someone I trusted fed me lies about your mother. Photographs that made innocent things look damning. Documents that suggested betrayal. And instead of trusting the woman I loved, I believed the lies." "Why?" "Because I was afraid. Of being fooled. Of being used. Of loving someone so completely that their betrayal would destroy me. So you destroyed her instead." "Yes." Elijah processed this, his expression unreadable. "Mom never blamed you. Not to us. She never poisoned us against you. She just left a space where you should have been and let us fill it with whatever we imagined." "What did you imagine?" "Different things at different ages." Elijah's voice softened slightly. "When I was little, I imagined you were dead. That seemed easier than thinking you had chosen to leave. When I got older, I imagined you were a monster. Someone incapable of love. Someone we were lucky to escape. And now I see a man in a hospital bed, about to let doctors cut him open to save a daughter he has never met." Elijah met his father's eyes directly. "That does not look like a monster to me. That looks like someone trying to make something right. I will never make this right." Marcus's voice cracked. "There is no making right 17 years of absence. I can only try to make the future better than the past." Elijah was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the bed, and did something Marcus had not dared to hope for. He took his father's hand. "My sister is scared. She does not show it. She never shows weakness. But she is terrified. She has never been sick before. She has always been the strong one, the one who took care of everything, the one who protected Mom and me when we could not protect ourselves. And now she is lying in that bed, watching machines clean her blood, wondering if her body is going to kill her. I am going to save her. You might die trying. The doctors told us the surgery has risks. Elijah's grip tightened. And if you die, we will never get the chance to know you. We will just be stuck with questions that never get answered. Then I will try not to die. The ghost of a smile crossed Elijah's face. Mia should meet you. Before the surgery. In case I do not wake up. In case you do not wake up. Zara refused. Absolutely not, she said when Elijah found her in the waiting room. He does not get to earn their love through a single sacrifice. He does not get to erase 17 years by handing over a kidney. Mom. No. I have spent their entire lives protecting them. Protecting them from poverty, from hunger, from men who would use them or hurt them. I am not going to stop protecting them now just because he showed up with matching blood types. But from inside the room, a voice interrupted. Mom. I want to see him. They turned. Mia was awake, propped up against pillows, the dialysis machine humming beside her. She looked exhausted, pale, fragile in a way she had never looked in her entire life. But her eyes were sharp. Determined. Sweetheart. I am the one dying. I am the one who is going to carry a piece of him inside me for the rest of my life. However long that is. I deserve to look at him before that happens. Zara opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because her daughter was right. And she knew it. The meeting happened at midnight. Marcus was brought to Mia's room in a wheelchair, hospital protocol for pre-surgical patients. He hated the vulnerability of it. Hated being pushed when he wanted to walk. But he said nothing. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of monitors and a small lamp on the bedside table. Mia was sitting up now, connected to fewer machines, looking more alert than she had that morning. And when Marcus entered, she fixed him with a stare that reminded him so strongly of Zara that his heart clenched. So you are him. I am him. Mom says you accused her of cheating. That you threw her out without proof. That you chose doubt over trust. That is accurate. That is pathetic. Marcus almost smiled despite everything. Also accurate. Mia studied him, her gaze dissecting him piece by piece. Why should I let you save me? The question caught him off guard. Because you want to live. But do I want to live with part of you inside me? Do I want to owe my existence to a man who destroyed my mother? Do I want to wake up every morning and know that my survival came from someone who was not there for any of the moments that mattered? Marcus absorbed the questions without flinching. You do not owe me anything. This is not a transaction. I am not saving you to earn forgiveness or by redemption or make myself feel better about 18 years of failure. Then why? Because you are my daughter. He leaned forward in the wheelchair, his voice raw. Because the moment I learned you existed, nothing else mattered. Because you deserve to live, regardless of what I did or did not do. The kidney is a gift. Free. No strings. You can hate me forever if you want. You can never speak to me again. You can pretend I do not exist. And I will still be grateful that some part of me helped keep you alive. Mia's armor cracked, just slightly. Just enough to show the fear underneath. My brother says you are ready to die for us. I am. That is stupid. If you die, we never get to decide whether to forgive you. We are just stuck with the ghost of a man we never knew. Then I will try very hard not to die. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she extended her hand, thin and trembling from the dialysis, from the weeks of deterioration, from the weight of everything she had been carrying. Marcus took it carefully, gently, like she might break. I have 17 years of questions, she said. And you do not get to escape them by dying on an operating table. You hear me? I hear you. Good. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. Now go get some sleep. You have a surgery tomorrow. The surgery was scheduled for 6 in the evening. Marcus spent the day in preparation. More tests. More monitoring. A final conversation with the surgical team about risks and procedures and what to expect during recovery. He signed papers, advance directives, consent forms, documentation that acknowledged he understood he might not survive. None of it mattered. He would have signed anything, done anything. At 5:30, they came to take him to the operating room. Zara was waiting in the hallway. She looked like she had not slept in days. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was escaping from its practical ponytail. And her eyes, those dark eyes that had once looked at him with love, now looked at him with something he could not quite identify. The children wanted to see you before. She handed him 2 folded pieces of paper. They wrote these. In case you do not wake up. Marcus took the notes but did not open them. Tell them I will read these after. When I wake up. When Mia is healthy. When we have time. You are very confident for a man about to have major surgery. I am not confident. I am determined. There is a difference. She studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked them both. She stepped forward and took his hand. You do not get to die. Her voice was fierce, barely above a whisper. You do not get to save them and then abandon them by dying. That is not how this works. I am not planning on dying. Good. Because those children need you. She swallowed hard. And apparently, I am not quite as ready to lose you as I thought I was. Before he could respond, she released his hand and stepped back. Go. Save our daughter. The orderlies wheeled him toward the operating room. He did not look back. Could not look back. But he carried her words with him into the surgery. Carried them like a talisman. Like a reason to survive. The operating room was cold and bright. Marcus stared up at the surgical lights as the anesthesiologist explained what would happen next. Counting backward. Drifting off. Waking up later, lighter by 1 kidney but hopefully not by 1 life. We are going to begin the sedation now. Any final questions? Marcus thought of his children. Of the notes in his hospital gown pocket. Of Zara's hand in his. Just bring me back. The anesthesiologist smiled. That is the plan. The drugs entered his bloodstream. The room began to blur. The voices of the surgical team became distant, like sounds heard through water. And in the last moment before consciousness slipped away, Marcus whispered something that only he could hear. Let me live long enough to know them. Whatever happens after that is fine. Just let me live long enough to know them. Then darkness took him. The surgery lasted 11 hours. Zara sat in the waiting room, flanked by Elijah and Mia, who had insisted on being brought down in her wheelchair despite doctor's orders. They sat in silence, watching the clock, counting the minutes, sharing a terror that none of them could voice. Somewhere behind those operating room doors, 2 surgeries were happening simultaneously. Marcus being opened up, his kidney removed. Mia prepped for transplant, her failing organs about to receive new life. The wait was excruciating. Elijah held his sister's hand. Mia held her mother's. And Zara held herself together through sheer force of will. What if he dies? Mia whispered around 3 in the morning. He will not die, Zara said, though she was not sure if she believed it. But what if he does? Then we will carry him with us. The way we have carried his absence all these years. Only this time, we will carry his sacrifice instead. Elijah looked at his mother. You still love him. It was not a question. Zara did not answer. Could not answer. Because the truth was too complicated for words. She had spent 17 years hating him. Building a life around his absence. Constructing an identity that did not need him. But watching him walk into that operating room, watching him prepare to give up a piece of himself for children he had never known, something had shifted. Hate and love were not opposites. They were 2 sides of the same coin. And she had been flipping that coin for nearly 2 decades. At 5 in the morning, a surgeon emerged. Everyone froze. Both patients are stable. The surgeon's face was exhausted but relieved. The transplant was successful. Mia's body is accepting the kidney beautifully. And Marcus came through the extraction without complications. Zara felt something give way inside her. Something she had been holding so tightly for so long that she had forgotten it was there. Can we see them? Mia is being moved to recovery now. She will be awake within the hour. Marcus is in the ICU. He lost a significant amount of blood during the procedure, and we want to monitor him closely for the next 24 hours. But barring any unforeseen complications, he should make a full recovery. Thank God, Elijah breathed. Mia was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. He did it. He actually did it. Of course he did. Zara wiped her own eyes. He is your father. The words came out before she could stop them. And once they were out, she realized she meant them. Whatever else Marcus had done, whatever he had destroyed, he was their father. And he had proven it in the only way that mattered. The recovery was slow. Marcus woke in the ICU to a blur of machines and fluorescent lights. His abdomen felt like it had been torn apart and reassembled by someone with no concern for comfort. Every breath was an exercise in pain management. But he was alive. And when the nurse told him his daughter was awake, healthy, already showing signs of improvement, the pain became irrelevant. Can I see her? Not yet. You need to rest. But she asked about you. Wanted to make sure you survived. Tell her I survived. Tell her I am not going anywhere. The days that followed were a parade of visitors and medical updates. Elijah came first, bearing a notebook filled with observations about hospital life that he was apparently turning into a story. He sat beside Marcus's bed and read passages aloud, his voice steady and warm. This is good, Marcus said after one particularly moving section. You have talent. Mom says I get it from somewhere. Elijah smiled slightly. She always suspected it was from you, even though she never said your name. I used to write. A long time ago. Before I decided that money was more important than meaning. Maybe it is not too late to start again. Mia came next, wheeled in by a nurse who clearly disapproved but could not argue with the determination in the girl's eyes. She looked better. Color returning to her cheeks. Strength returning to her voice. You look terrible, she announced upon seeing him. You look alive. He smiled despite the pain. That is all that matters. She was quiet for a moment. I read the notes. The ones Elijah and I wrote for you. The ones you were supposed to open in case you died. I told you I would read them after. You did. She pulled the folded papers from her pocket. So I brought them. In case you want to read them now. He took them carefully, unfolding them with hands that still shook slightly from surgery. Elijah's note was short, written in cramped handwriting that somehow conveyed both intelligence and emotion. To the father I never knew. I do not know yet if I can forgive you for the years we lost. But I am willing to find out. Thank you for giving us a chance to try. Mia's note was longer, more confrontational, more her. You missed everything. First words. First steps. First heartbreaks. You were not there when Mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. You were not there when Elijah got bullied for not having a father. You were not there when I won the science fair or when I did not make the volleyball team or when I cried myself to sleep wondering what was so wrong with me that my own father did not want to know me. But you are here now. And that is something. I do not know if I can ever love you the way daughters love fathers who were always there. But maybe I can love you the way survivors love second chances. Carefully. Slowly. With a lot of room for mistakes. You gave me a kidney. The least I can do is give you time. Marcus read both notes 3 times. Then he folded them carefully and held them against his chest. Thank you, he said quietly. Both of you. Do not thank us yet, Mia replied. You still have a lot of questions to answer. I know. And Mom has not decided what to do about you. I know that too. Good. She allowed herself a small smile. Just so we are all on the same page. Zara came last. She appeared in his doorway late one evening, when the ICU was quiet and the nurses were occupied elsewhere. She stood there for a long moment, watching him, her expression unreadable. You are awake. Barely. She moved into the room, sitting in the chair beside his bed. I found something. She pulled a bundle of yellowed envelopes from her bag. Letters. From 18 years ago. My aunt had been intercepting your mail. Destroying most of it. But she kept these. She gave them to me before. She trailed off. Before. She is dying. Cancer. A few months left. She wanted to clear her conscience before she goes. Marcus stared at the envelopes. You wrote to me, Zara continued quietly. For 2 years after the divorce. 63 letters. Apologizing. Explaining. Searching. She held up the bundle. I never got any of them. I thought you were ignoring me. I thought you had moved on. Made peace with what you did. Never looked back. I looked back every single day. Silence stretched between them. Zara opened one of the letters, reading aloud. I was wrong. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. I do not know who convinced me to doubt you, but I know now that they lied. That you never betrayed me. That I destroyed the only good thing in my life because I was too proud to trust the woman I loved. She set the letter down. You wrote that 6 months after the divorce. I wrote a lot of things. The last letter, she continued. The one dated 2 years after. She picked it up, reading. I'm going to stop writing now. Not because I do not care, but because these letters are clearly not reaching you. Maybe they were never meant to. I want you to be happy, Zara. Even if that happiness does not include me. Especially if it does not. Because I do not deserve you anyway. I never did. Her voice broke on the last words. You stopped looking for me. I never stopped. I just stopped believing I would find you. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that neither of them expected. She took his hand. These letters, she said slowly. They do not erase what happened. They do not undo the accusation or the divorce or the 17 years I spent raising our children alone. I know. But they change the story. She met his eyes. I thought you were just cruel. Cold. Incapable of remorse. But these letters show someone who was broken. Who knew he was wrong. Who spent years trying to fix something that could not be fixed. I am still that person. Still broken. Still trying. I know. She squeezed his hand. And I am not saying I forgive you. I do not know if I will ever be able to forgive you completely. But I am willing to see who you have become. To let our children know you. To try building something from the wreckage. That is more than I deserve. Yes, it is. But she did not let go of his hand. And in the dim light of the ICU, surrounded by machines that measured whether he was still alive, Marcus felt something he had not felt in 18 years. Hope. The recovery took months. Marcus was transferred from ICU to a regular room, then eventually discharged to outpatient care. His body healed slowly, adjusting to life with one kidney, rebuilding strength that the surgery had stolen. But the more important healing happened elsewhere. He met with his children regularly, at first in hospital settings, then in cafes and parks, and eventually in the modest apartment where Zara had raised them alone for 17 years. He sat in their cramped living room, looking at the worn furniture and the carefully organized shelves and the evidence of lives lived on the edge of poverty. This is where you grew up. This is where we survived, Mia corrected. There is a difference. He learned their stories. Not all at once, but piece by piece, conversation by conversation. He learned that Elijah had been bullied mercilessly in middle school, that Mia had once punched a boy twice her size for calling her brother names, that they had developed their own language of looks and gestures that allowed them to communicate without words. He learned that Zara had worked overnight shifts for years, that the children had made their own dinners and helped each other with homework and taken care of their mother when she was too exhausted to take care of herself. He learned that Mia had turned down multiple scholarship opportunities because the associated costs, travel, books, housing, were beyond their reach. That Elijah had sold his stories to small magazines for $50 each, money that went straight to groceries. He learned the texture of the life he had missed. And it humbled him in ways he had not thought possible. One evening, about 3 months after the surgery, Zara asked him to stay for dinner. It was a simple meal. Pasta with vegetables. Nothing like the elaborate dishes prepared in his penthouse kitchen. But sitting at that small table, crowded between his son and daughter, listening to them argue about books and music and whether artificial intelligence would ever truly think, Marcus understood something fundamental. This was what mattered. Not the towers with his name on them. Not the quarterly returns. Not the accumulation of wealth that had meant nothing when he had no one to share it with. This. Family. Connection. Love that showed up not in grand gestures but in daily presence. After the children went to bed, Zara sat with him on the small balcony overlooking a neighborhood that had seen better days. "I sold the penthouse," he said quietly. "What?" "I could not live there anymore. All those rooms. All that emptiness. It felt like a tomb." "Where are you living now?" "A smaller place. 3 bedrooms. Near the park where I saw those children playing, years ago. The day I finally understood what I had lost." She was quiet for a moment. That is a significant change for a man who built his identity on accumulating square footage. "I am learning that identity can be rebuilt. Same as buildings. Same as families." Zara looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since the hospital. "What do you want, Marcus? From all this?" "From me. From them. I want to know them." He spoke carefully, choosing each word. "Every detail, every dream, every moment I missed. I want to be at their graduations and their weddings and every important moment in between. I want to make up for 17 years of absence by being present for whatever comes next." "And me?" He hesitated, then spoke the truth, because there had been too many lies already. "I want another chance. Not now. Not rushed. I know I have not earned it. But eventually. I want to prove that I can choose trust over doubt. Love over pride. Us over my own fear. That is asking a lot. I know. And if the answer is no, I will accept it. But I had to be honest about what I want." Zara stared out at the city lights, at the skyline dominated by buildings Marcus had constructed, monuments to achievement that meant nothing compared to what was sitting beside him. "Here is what is going to happen," she said finally. "You are going to keep recovering. Keep showing up for our children. Keep proving, day by day, that you are not the man who threw me away 18 years ago. I can do that. And I am going to watch closely for any sign that you are falling back into old patterns. Pride. Suspicion. Choosing yourself over us. That is fair. And if you pass those tests." She turned to look at him. "If you earn our trust through months and years of consistent presence, then maybe, I can consider the possibility of forgiving you. Maybe is more than I deserve." "Yes." She smiled slightly. "It is." They sat in silence, watching the city breathe below them. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, that is all redemption requires. 1 year later, they gathered in a new house. It was modest by any standard Marcus would have recognized from his former life. 4 bedrooms. A small garden. A kitchen designed for family dinners rather than professional catering. But it felt more like home than any mansion ever had. The penthouse money had funded this purchase, along with substantial donations to the crisis shelters where Zara had once sought refuge. The towers with his name were being renamed, the proceeds redirected to programs that helped families in need. Marcus Donovan was dismantling his empire and rebuilding something better in its place. The children had finished their senior year. Elijah's book, a semi-autobiographical novel about a family torn apart and pieced back together, had attracted attention from publishers. Mia had accepted a full scholarship to study biomedical engineering, determined to research the genetic conditions that had nearly killed her. And Zara had finally stopped working 3 jobs. She was standing in the kitchen now, unpacking boxes, directing traffic as Marcus and Elijah carried furniture and Mia offered unhelpful commentary from the couch. "The bookshelf goes against the north wall. More light for reading. You could help, you know," Elijah grunted, struggling with the heavy oak frame. "I just had major surgery. A year ago. Trauma lingers." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed, with his whole body, the way he had not laughed in 2 decades. "She has a point," he said. "Trauma does linger." Mia grinned at him. "See? Dad gets it. Dad." She had started calling him that about 3 months ago. Casually at first, almost accidentally. Then more deliberately, testing the word, seeing how it fit. It fit well. Elijah had taken longer. He still oscillated between Dad and Marcus, depending on his mood, on how close he felt, on whether he was angry about something from the past that still surfaced occasionally. Marcus accepted both. He would answer to anything they chose to call him. Would show up regardless of what names they used. would be present for every version of relationship they were willing to offer. That was the promise he had made. To himself and to them. Later that evening, after the furniture was arranged and the boxes were unpacked and the children had retreated to their rooms, Zara found Marcus standing alone in the garden. "It is not much," she said, joining him. "Compared to what you are used to. It is everything." He did not look at her. "It is everything I should have built the first time, if I had understood what mattered." She was quiet for a long moment. "I have been thinking," she said finally, "about forgiveness. About what it means and whether it is possible after everything that happened. You do not owe me forgiveness. I know. But I have been carrying anger for 18 years. And it is exhausting." She moved closer, standing beside him, looking out at the small patch of grass and flowers they now owned together. "I am not saying the anger is gone. I am not saying I have forgotten. But I am saying I am ready to put it down. To stop letting what happened define everything that comes next." "What does that mean?" "It means I forgive you." The words landed like a physical force. Marcus turned to look at her, searching her face for doubt, for reservation, for any sign that she did not mean it. He found none. "I forgive you," she repeated. "For the accusation. For the divorce. For the 18 years you were not there. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to the anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. And because our children deserve parents who are not defined by ancient wounds." "Zara, I am not finished." She held up a hand. "Forgiving you does not mean I trust you. Trust has to be earned. Slowly. Carefully. With time and consistency and a lot of room for mistakes. I understand. And I am not saying I love you. Not yet. I do not know if that is possible after everything. I do not expect you to love me. I just want the chance to prove I am worthy of being in your life. In their lives." She nodded. "Then we are on the same page." She started to turn back toward the house. Then stopped. "There is one more thing." "What?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. Something that glinted in the evening light. Her wedding ring. The simple band she had placed on the marble floor 18 years ago. "My aunt kept this too. Along with the letters. I found it after she passed." Marcus stared at the ring. "I am not saying we start over," Zara continued. "We cannot go back to who we were. Too much has happened. Too much has changed." "Then what are you saying?" "I am saying maybe we can start something new. Not a recreation of the past. Something different. Something built on honesty instead of assumptions. Trust earned instead of trust assumed." She held out the ring. "This was a symbol of a promise we both broke. But maybe, someday, it can be a symbol of a promise we keep." Marcus took the ring carefully. Held it in his palm like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I love you," he said quietly. "I never stopped." "I know." She smiled, small but real. "And I am learning to believe that again." He closed his hand around the ring, making his own silent promise. Then they turned and walked back toward the house, where their children were waiting, where their new life was beginning, where the future stretched out before them full of possibility and hope. The door opened as they approached. Mia stood in the entrance, arms crossed, expression suspicious. "Are you two having a moment?" "Yes," Zara replied. "Is it a good moment or a weird moment?" Marcus looked at Zara. Zara looked at Marcus. "Both," they said together. Mia rolled her eyes. "Great. Well, Elijah set the stove on fire trying to make tea, so someone should probably deal with that." She disappeared back inside, shouting something at her brother about basic life skills. Marcus and Zara stood on the threshold, looking at each other, looking at the chaos waiting inside, looking at the life they were building from the wreckage of the life they had destroyed. "Welcome home," Zara said softly. And this time, finally, Marcus knew exactly what those words meant. Some stories end in tragedy. Some end in triumph. But the best stories, the truest stories, end in transformation. In the understanding that we are not defined by our worst moments, but by what we choose to do after them. That love, once broken, can be rebuilt. That family, once lost, can be found. That home is not a place, but a choice. and that sometimes the second chapter is better than the first. Not because it is perfect, but because it is earned. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that redemption is possible and second chances are worth fighting for, share it with someone who needs to hear that message. Subscribe to Tales of Desire with Mr. Walker for more stories that do not just entertain, but transform. And leave a comment below. Do you believe people can truly change? I would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, my beautiful family. Keep believing in the power of love, forgiveness, and the possibility of new beginnings. The end.